Ladies and gentlemen, I am abiding by YouTube policies. Politico. This is an article titled Sources, Secret Service inserted itself into case of Hunter Biden's 38. That's the caliber. We'll just call it a 38, which is what it was. The bizarre incident involved a trash can, a man searching for recyclables, and eventually federal law enforcement. Donald Trump Jr. is 100% right. You have President Biden who wants to pass laws restricting the Second Amendment. Isn't it interesting that when it's legislation that Democrats are pushing, you're not restricting anything. You're doing what's right, what's moral, what's good. Meanwhile, people who are, criminals don't follow the law. That's a very difficult concept for certain people to understand. Morally superior, wonderful, wonderful, apoplectic, morally superior liberals. Liberal Democrats. They're just so intelligent and wonderful, and they kind of have a very difficult time understanding basic concepts like people who don't follow the law don't care about legislation. So you're not going to stop, you're not even going to stop the president's son, okay? The president that is pushing legislation to restrict one of the Bill of Rights obtained a 38 when he was kicked out of the Navy, and when his substance abuse issues are well known, well documented, and pretty much a national security risk. I mean, you have emails that show alleged pay-to-play schemes. How can you use your influence on behalf of the company? I give 10% to the big man. Thank you for the honor of meeting your father. Meanwhile, his father says he doesn't. Our beloved President Biden has denied any involvement or even knowledge of his son's business affairs. Well, the emails show that not only did he have knowledge, but he was a part of those business meetings. His son brokered those meetings. That's the definition. That's not nepotism. That's pay to play. That's quid pro quo. But here, Hunter responded no to a question on the transaction record that asks, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to, and then certain substances, then depressants, stimulants, or any other controlled substance. That's not true. We know that he, 5 years earlier, had been discharged from the Navy Reserve for testing positive for a white powder. So, and he and his family have spoken about his history of use. Lying on the form is a felony, though. Okay, so when you talk about obtaining a 38, okay, or any type of, you're talking about people like Hunter Biden who skirt or circumvent the law. President Biden should draft legislation to ensure that his son doesn't, you're drafting legislation to restrict the Second Amendment, and your own son lied on the form meant to ensure that people that don't have the same issues he has obtains a 38. But Donald Trump Jr. is right. In addition to that, his girlfriend threw the 38 into a dumpster. She took it to Jansen's Market, a nearby high-end grocery store where the Bidens are longtime regular customers. There, she tossed the 38 wrapped in a shopping bag into a trash bin outside the store. This is what happens. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Share this segment. It's important. If you want to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, The Daily Caller, other publications, the Roanoke Times. If you want to see my debates, go to hagoodman.com. If you want to support my voice long-term, my Patreon is below. This is what happens, when you're not either into something or you don't know, the only thing that morally superior liberals know about the Second Amendment is that These inanimate objects are sentient beings that can levitate and float and pull their own triggers and, like, they have, like, human emotions. It's never the maniac committing an atrocity. It's always, well, more legislation could have stopped it, when in reality, most of these, if not all of these atrocities, can't be addressed by legislation. If anything, you have to allow people to protect themselves with concealed carry or open carry. How on earth what are you going to do if, God forbid, some maniac commits an atrocity? What are you going to say? Hey, wait a second, Biden's going to pass legislation. And then what? That's those, God forbid, will be your last words? Well, the Republicans and the NRA. Those are your last words? Don't you want to defend yourself, God forbid, when that happens? Or if that happens? So, law-abiding citizens shouldn't be restricted. Notice that when it's Georgia's voting law, that doesn't restrict anyone. Like, you have all the time in the world. 3 months with ID is all the time in the world. 2 weeks prior for early voting. What more do you want? I'm sorry, the pandemic-related the pandemic response shouldn't always be adopted. So Raffensperger and everybody throughout the country implemented legislation or protocols to address the pandemic. Now that the pandemic is over, maybe issues pertaining to integrity should be addressed. Even if nothing was wrong. Let's say, okay, nothing was wrong. We found no evidence. Okay, fine. Does that mean you never address issues of integrity? That means you never, so any legislation is restricting your right to vote, but any legislation with the Second Amendment is protecting society? How much of a hypocrite and a narcissist do you have to be to see the world in that way? But his girlfriend took the gun to Jansen's Market, a nearby high-end grocer. Okay, so guess what? Later that day, his girlfriend informed Hunter of what she had done, and he instructed her to retrieve the .38 according to the police report. When she returned to the... I love how he instructed her. He doesn't go... he doesn't go himself. He's like, I used to do a great Hunter imitation. What was it? Oh my God, you threw my .38 into the dumpster. Well, go get it. Go get it, please. Yeah, it happens to be a felony. When my father implements legislation restricting the Second Amendment, you're going to be in big trouble. So, no, I'm not going to go myself. No, you go. You took the .38. Oh, what? It's no longer there? Oh my God. Well, then call the Secret Service. Yeah, there'll be a Politico article out, and eventually talking about how the Secret Service helped me, didn't help me. Helped me, but didn't help me, because it never happened, even though it did. See, when we run everything, things that happen don't happen. Get it? When the girlfriend returned to the grocery store, she found that the .38 was missing from the garbage bin. And reported the issue to the store. Police received calls from the store's general manager and from another person. The missing .38 caused heightened concern, according to the police report, because the grocery store sits across the street from a high school. These are the people lecturing you and judging you and condemning you. God forbid you own a legal, like I do, like you do, a legal Second Amendment, you take advantage of your Second Amendment rights legally, and you abide by the law. When Hunter Biden doesn't abide by the law, the Secret Service allegedly gets involved. And Donald Trump Jr. is 100% right in calling him out, because The worst thing they have on Donald Trump and Eric Trump Jr. is they went hunting. Big deal. What's the worst thing with Hunter Biden? Oh, yeah. Let's see. A litany of things. Getting kicked out of the Navy. Like, overcoming substance issues, that's a good thing if you overcome the issues. But the recent emails, which were like the past couple of years, and by the way, this incident with the 38 happened only several years back. So let's see here. 2018, okay? You're dealing with a person who has a chaotic life full of, very likely, a whole bunch of narcotics, alcohol. Like, you're not talking about a glass of wine at dinner. You're talking about, like, obviously, and not just, you're talking about a whole bunch of really, a person who is out of control but can barely control his life. And he's propped up and enabled by a system that hides and sweeps under the rug any indiscretion from liberal Democrats or felonies, potential felonies. They focus and obsess on Trump's personality still, but Trump isn't in the Oval Office anymore. It's our beloved President Biden. And, by the way, a record number of people have gone through the background checks, FBI background checks, and obtained their own 38s and Second Amendment. And so it's really hilarious how even Democrats aren't even going to vote for the more conservative blue dog Democrats. Manchin, they're not going to vote for this. The Democrats in Arizona aren't going to vote for this. It'll be a catastrophic failure. It'll be a catastrophic failure at the end of the day for Biden. But then again, look what's taking place. Atrocities are taking place and AOC is silent. Where was she? Why isn't she looking through a chain-linked fence again? Oh, that's right, because Democrats oftentimes are hypocrites. Why isn't she comparing what's taking place to a certain time period she should never again speak about? That Yad Vashem in Jerusalem had to refute when she engaged in revisionist and denial claims, because they are essentially denial. When you're comparing, even like, you couldn't even compare what's taking place now, which is much worse than what took place with President Trump. And if you want to bring up a certain policy, which was horrendous, I agree, with President Trump. I was against the family separation, and I'm against it. It was a bad policy. He ended it in 2018, by the way. People forget that. You look at the Senate report, President Obama's Senate report was worse than that, and that Senate report's probably taking place now. The system is overrun, and Democrats are presiding over it, and then you have Keith Olbermann in one of his rants saying, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? Do exactly what you wanted Trump to do, which is act in a moral way. You condemned Trump from the moral vantage point. Now it's your turn to instantly fix the problems you're presiding over. And if you don't, you're immoral. You are what AOC accused Trump of or whatever. I mean, AOC should never again talk about that historical time period. Okay? Yad Vashem told her to learn more about the topic. And I wrote about that in the Jerusalem Post. Read my op-ed. That's on hagoodman.com. She knows very little, practically nothing about that time period. But I stated, if you look at Keith Olbermann, it's like, it's unbelievable. He was saying, well, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And it's like, you circumvent the responsibility and the reality of what's taking place. You wake up every morning as a morally superior, apoplectic, morally superior liberal Democrat, and you say, the world loves me. Finally, the orange monster, the orange menace is gone, and we can get back to our righteous and noble leadership. And you look at the tragedies that are taking place right now that I can't even talk about because of YouTube policies. Look what's taking place right now in the southern geographic region of our country. What are you going to do about it? It's not, what do you want us to, Keith Olbermann said, what do you want us to do? No. You decide the best course of action to fix the problem right now. People are suffering. There's chaos. There's a whole bunch of, atrocious things taking place right now. Fix it. And if you can't fix it right away, don't pretend you're morally superior. And if you can't even acknowledge, forget about fixing it. If you can't even acknowledge that what's taking place is even worse than what took place in President Trump's administration, because it is, I mean, if you can't even acknowledge that, or if you can't even acknowledge that, let's say you want to say, it's not as bad. If you can't even acknowledge that what's taking place is horrendous, and it's under your watch, and you're doing nothing about it, or very little, or not enough, then you're not morally superior. You're a narcissist. You're a self-centered, egotistical narcissist. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe. And it's not just about that topic. It's about the Second Amendment. It's about most topics. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you.